The 39 Apartments of Ludwig van Beethoven by Jonah Winter. Fact: Ludwig van Beethoven was born in the town of Bonn in the country of Germany in the year 1770. Years later, he became a great composer. Fact: Ludwig van Beethoven owned 5 legless pianos and composed great works on the floor. Fact: Ludwig van Beethoven lived in 39 different apartments, which, of course, is the subject of our story. See the title. But now things get fuzzier. Did our hero really pour water on top of his head while composing? Why did he live in so many different apartments? And what were those apartments like? As far as we can tell, Beethoven's first apartment was a beautiful parlor in the center of Vienna, which is the capital of Austria. Here, it seems, he composed the Moonlight Sonata and his first symphony. But Ludwig forgot to pay the rent, so he was kicked out. This was a problem because, fact, it is very difficult to move a piano. Fact, it's even more difficult to move 5 pianos. After 2 centuries of research, we still have no clue as to how all of the pianos made it from one apartment to the next. Nor can we be certain that the following sentence is true. But here it is. Ludwig van Beethoven's next home was a basement apartment in a dangerous part of town. Here he composed piano sonatas 3 through 17, his violin concerto in D major, and the Second Symphony. Why did Ludwig move after only 8.5 days? Was it, as his diary suggests, because of the hideous, stinky cheese smell that filled his apartment? We don't know. Nor do we truly know how the pianos made it out of the building. But scuff marks discovered in the hallway can mean only one thing. The pianos must have been slid through the back door, then drawn up to the roof by a system of pulleys and lowered onto the second-floor balcony at the front of the building, where the neighbors must have been kind enough to allow the movers to wheel the pianos through their apartments to the stairway, down the stairs, and out the front door. It is unclear how the pianos made it into Ludwig van Beethoven's next apartment, which was like a palace, full of light and air. From the terrace, he had a view of the Danube River, and likely the smell of Viennese coffee wafted through his open windows. Here he composed symphonies 3 through 5, piano sonatas 18 through 23, and many chamber works for clarinet, bassoon, oboe, flute, and English horn, in addition to several string trios. It was indeed a busy time. But Ludwig van Beethoven was going deaf, and he had to bang quite loudly on the 5 pianos to hear anything. Much research has revealed that there were complaints from the neighbors about the noise. Bits of paper with the German words for "shut up" have been discovered. And then there were the dents in the ceiling of his downstairs neighbor, probably made by a broomstick banged repeatedly. Poor Ludwig was again kicked out. By now, the movers were certainly getting fed up. In the diary of one Ansel Schwartz, we find the following, translated here into modern English. After this move, I'm out of here. That dude is whacked. And whacked in the head, and my back, like really messed up. The records do show that this job was a humdinger. The easy part was moving the pianos out. They were simply lowered from the balcony, and all went smoothly. The hard part was moving the pianos into the new apartment, which was tiny and in an attic. It seems the movers had to push the pianos through the old castle next door, through a grand hall displaying suits of armor, up 3 flights of stairs, and into a dentist office. The movers then bashed in the wall, a theory supported by the gaping hole we found behind a poster with the German words for "don't forget to floss" that must have been used to conceal the spot. They passed through the dentist's apartment and out into the hallway, and up onto Ludwig van Beethoven's new roof, where they could be lowered carefully, then hoisted into his tiny attic apartment, which luckily had an enormous window. Here, Beethoven wrote all of his piano concerti, as well as his famous Pastoral Symphony No. 6. It was gorgeous music, but repeated complaints were filed with the local magistrate, mostly by one neighbor, a certain Fräulein Inga Hausfrau, who, in one complaint, she demands that the maestro's immediate rest, because that madman is banging on those blasted pianos day and night. And yet, it appears that Ludwig could hardly hear his pianos at all. After much growling and Pouring of water over his own head, he quite likely decided that there must be something wrong with his apartment. It was time to move once again. Probably because it had been so much work getting the pianos into the apartment, Ludwig van Beethoven decided to leave them. He needed some new pianos anyway, since the old ones weren't loud enough. Or so he thought. By now, Beethoven's hearing had gotten so bad that when he played his new pianos in his stylish new loft-style apartment, he played bangingly loud. This notion is supported by a startling discovery made in his neighbor's apartment. Hundreds of cotton balls with traces of dried earwax. Clearly, the noise was unbearable, and the neighbors must have been furious. Scraps of an old eviction notice show that Ludwig van Beethoven was booted after only one day. It should be noted, however, that during that day he composed 10 violin sonatas, 2 more symphonies, and 1 string quartet. It seems to have been a good place to work. Not surprisingly, the great composer was somewhat upset at being kicked out. "Don't these fools know who I am?" he scrawled on the bathroom wall. Stains reveal that he then dumped another bowl of water on his head. Certainly, the movers had lost all patience with schlepping Ludwig's mini pianos up and down stairways. A diagram has been found clearly drawn by mover Schwartz and revealing a new plan in which the pianos would never have to touch the ground. A large slide would be constructed, much like a cement truck's enormous funnel. The movers must have studied the bold plan carefully before attempting it. The slide would stick out the window and extend all the way to a chimney several blocks away. The pianos would slide out the window toward the chimney, where a catapult would shoot them up into the air. Then the pianos would then fall straight through a hole in the ceiling of Ludwig van Beethoven's new apartment, where a gigantic piano-sized pillow would cushion their fall. According to various eyewitness accounts and newspaper articles from that day, the entire device blew away in the storm. Fact. That's all we know of the 39 apartments of Ludwig van Beethoven. The end.